Nothing But the Words, episode number 34. Is your book too long?
Welcome to Nothing But the Words, the podcast that gives you everything you need to know to write a phenomenal book. Now here's your host, your author coach, Candace L. Davis.
Hey there, and welcome to Nothing But the Words. I'm your author coach, Candace L. Davis. So much change is happening in my world right now. My younger daughter has been living at home for 5 months because of the pandemic. Now she's in the middle of planning to make a huge move. She's going to live and study abroad. My husband has some big projects in the works that he's really excited about, as much as he gets excited because he's not really the hooping and hollering type. I'm that one in the relationship. One of my author coaching clients just landed a powerhouse literary agent who I'm positive will help her land a fantastic book deal. Another client sent me an insanely thoughtful gift. Now, this wasn't really a change happening in my life, but it was a great moment. Jaslyn Denise created a workbook called the Prayer Playbook, but she didn't just send me a copy of the book, which some clients do, and I'm always incredibly grateful when they do because it's not necessary. They've paid for my services, but I really appreciate it when they send me especially autographed copies of their books. It's really special, and I like having them on my bookshelf. But Jaslyn also sent me a customized prayer box with my name on it. It's really beautiful. And inside were an autographed copy of her book, her signature candle, and a gratitude jar. It was so cool, you guys. The package actually arrived when I was feeling super frustrated and exhausted. And as soon as I opened the box, I thought it was an Amazon package coming when the delivery person knocked on the door. We order so much by Amazon right now, and I'm looking for alternatives. So please feel free to share if you have some. But when I opened the box and I saw what it was, I was just so floored. It was such a nice surprise, and it just reminded me that, nothing's as bad as it actually looks or seems. It totally changed my attitude for the day. If you follow me on Instagram at CandaceLDavis.com, you can see a video I created to show everyone how great Jaslyn's book is and how lovely the gift was that she sent. And if you want to check out the Prayer Playbook, it's available on Amazon or at JaslynDenise.com. So I also recently signed up for a course that I'm really excited about. I am looking forward to telling you about everything I do in this course in terms of the progress that I make. And if you're listening to this podcast, you probably love learning. I love learning. So I'm super excited. I try not to take too many courses because there are so many available. I took a fantastic course with Patrice Washington from Redefining Wealth earlier this year. She has a course called Command the Stage that she offers periodically that talks about how you can become a better speaker and develop your story and tell your story. And even though I coach other people to tell their stories, I had never really told mine. And so taking Command the Stage was great. And now I'm signed up for what will definitely be my last course of the year. So I say all that to say that while some incredibly sad, difficult, and even traumatic things have happened in 2020, even in my own family, some incredibly wonderful things have also happened. And I just believe when I look back at 2020, I'm going to be looking back at a good year. I actually look back at pretty much every year as a good year, even when there are terrible moments. We still have most of the year that's pretty great. So let's dive into this week's topic. Is your book too long? And how long is too long for a book? Now, typically I coach authors who either haven't started writing yet, or they've just barely started writing their books. They may even be getting to the end of their book and be in a panic because they realize they don't have enough content. Most of the authors that I work with do not have the problem of having too much content. If you've never written a book before, it's easy to end up with not enough content at the end of the day. And it's my job as an author coach to help you identify where you can go deeper, what you can expand on, what you can add that will not just add content to your book, but will also make it more valuable for your reader. So coming up with enough content can actually be a struggle, but that's a topic for a whole different episode. Today, I'm talking about authors who have too much word count. They have too many pages. They have too much content in their book, and they need to cut it. This topic is on my mind because I recently consulted with 2 authors who need to cut their books. Now, both of these authors had written memoirs, and both of them wanted to figure out the next step. They wanted to make their books the best they could be and then get them out there and publish them. Both authors also knew they had some cutting to do, but I'm not sure if they knew exactly how much cutting they would have to do. The first author I spoke with told me his manuscript is about 120,000 words. That would be well over 400 book pages. Honestly, I was really both shocked and impressed. This gentleman does not write full-time. He has never written a book before. He has a day job and a family. He's dealing with the pandemic just the same as the rest of us are. But this story was important enough to him that he committed to telling it fully. And I think it's going to be fantastic based on what he told me. I'm actually really excited for him and the fact that he put in the work to really get all the information in there. Now, while my head was still kind of reeling from that number, 120,000 words he'd written for his memoir, I also spoke with another author. She has a really important and moving story to share. And again, I believe it's going to resonate with so many people, and it's going to help a lot of people when she gets it published. We talked about where she was in the process, and then we talked about next steps for her. And then I asked her, what was her word count? 230,000 words, you guys. That's more than 900 book pages. I actually had to sit down when she gave me that number. I was concerned because I thought she was going to be overwhelmed trying to cut this book down. I was worried that she would get stuck when she realized just how much she has to cut. And honestly, she's probably going to need to cut 2/3 of the book. I know how hard that is. Right now, I'm working with a client to cut her book from 105,000 words down to about 85,000. It's a lot of work, but I would always prefer to have too much content than too little. I like having choices, and so we make the cuts, and she'll have plenty of content left for a great book. But the two authors I spoke with will each have a lot more than 20,000 words to cut. You may have noticed over the last couple of decades that books are getting shorter. Attention spans are getting shorter. Even in traditional publishing, many books aren't as long as they would have been 10 or 20 years ago. In my group coaching program, Short Books, Big Results, I coach my clients to shoot for around 30,000 words, but to really let the content dictate how long the book should be. They're in the program because they want to write short books, so I tell them to shoot for 30,000 words. I've had clients successfully write how-to books that are only 23,000 words because that was enough to teach what they wanted to teach. But we always use traditional publishing as sort of a measuring stick for what we do in self-publishing. So let's look at the stats from traditional publishing. I use word count. That's my way that I keep track of how long a book is because page count can be easily manipulated. As you know, if you ever wrote an essay in high school, you know that page count can be manipulated. You can change the font sizes, you can change the margins, you can add white space. Forget about it. Let's go with word count. But to get an idea of how many book pages we're talking about, just divide these numbers by 250. According to one study, novels average about 80,000 to 110,000 words. How-to and self-help books run 40,000 to 50,000 words. And memoirs typically come in around 80,000 words. The thing is, I've talked to many authors, including some of my clients, who told me their readers actually thanked them for writing a shorter book. They were happy to have something they could read on a long plane flight or something they could read over a long weekend, especially for how-to books, because they could then get the lessons and immediately start applying it and immediately start getting results. A book only needs to be as long as it needs to be to get the job done. But I have to tell you, most memoirs don't need to be more than 65,000 words or 250 pages. You start getting longer than that, and you will not only lose people as they're reading it, you will also lose readers who will look at the book and not be super excited by reading something that's so long. They know they have limited time, and they want to feel like they can get through the book within the time that they have. Now, many books are packed with fluff, and that's why they're so long. Even some traditionally published books, you read the book, and you feel like this could have been said in 10 pages. It did not need 300 pages to get me to the point. But I believe that's one of the big reasons why people don't finish books. We've seen studies that said that people only read something like the first 20 or 30% of a nonfiction book. And I think that's because many nonfiction books are packed with fluff. But that's just my perspective. You can tell from the length of my podcast episodes that I really like to get to the point. I know people are busy. I know attention spans are short. and I'm busy. My own attention span is short. I read long books. I will tell you, I do read long books. I read short books. I just read good books. I don't really care what the page count or the word count is if I feel like I'm getting value from page 1 all the way through to the end. But you never want to make your book too long just for the sake of saying, I wrote a big book. That's not impressive in and of itself. If you happen to write a big book and it's fantastic, then that's great. Now, if you publish traditionally, your publisher will have their own standards for how long a book should be. Right now, for self-publishing, though, I see a sweet spot between 23,000 words and 50,000 words for how-to books. That includes professional development, personal development, step-by-step how-to books. On the memoir side, I think 50,000 words is pretty perfect. 65,000 words is great. You start getting up to 80,000 words, you better be a darn good storyteller. If you're writing your manuscript right now and you're watching the word count grow and grow and grow, and you know it's going to be too long, that's nothing to panic about. It's really not a big deal. While you're writing, this is not the time to make cuts. Keep writing till you get to the end. Most people fail to publish a book because they never get to the end. So push on through even if your manuscript is too long. In the next episode, I'll tell you how I recommended the authors I consulted with trim their books. Well, it's more than a trim. Cut their books back so that they can reach and achieve a publishable length. Listen, there is no real magic number for how long your book should be, but ultimately you don't want it to be so short that it feels like a pamphlet in your reader's hands when it's published. You don't want it to be so long that it's either intimidating, unwieldy, winding, or just plain unappealing to readers. So you want to find that sweet spot for whatever genre you're writing in. The most important thing to do, of course, is to plan out what you're writing. Create an outline that lets you know you have enough content and you have the right content in your book. And then write from that. And it will also make it a lot easier when you need to make cuts because you'll have a big picture overview of what you are going to take out of your book. The book that I'm cutting for a client that's 105,000 words and we're cutting back to 85,000 words is only that long because it's meant to serve as a reference book. She set it up so that people have 6 different sections in the book and they can turn to the book where they need help. They can turn in the book where they need help and they can find the tips that they can apply immediately. So it's not meant to be read from beginning to end. It's a fantastic book. And I highly recommend that when it's released in the beginning of 2021, and I will be bragging about it on this show, I highly recommend that you get it and that you use it and apply it in the way that works for you. And if you have the time, that you read it little by little from beginning to end because it's all fantastic, but it's not made to be read that way in order to get the benefit from it. You really can go to a specific area and apply it. So it is exceptionally long for most of the books that people self-publish, but it's meant to be that way. Yours does not have to be that long. And if it's too long, don't stress. In next week's episode, I'll show you how to cut it back to where you want it to be. If you've enjoyed this episode, I'd really appreciate a fantastic review from you. Do not think that it won't make a difference. It really will. Reviews make the show more visible so new listeners can find it, and I appreciate every single one. Thanks for listening to Nothing But the Words. I'm your author coach, Candace L. Davis, and I'll see you next time.